Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to give you time to get out of the waiting room and into the live session. And it takes a few seconds. So I will talk really slowly until it's good timing. And I think we're probably good to get going. So good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. Excuse me. I'm Michelle Pinard with Brancha, and I'm joined by my colleague Maureen Astriani, Wave Maureen, to bring you this webinar. I'm really excited about today's session because we have a true South American expert with us, Klaus Fields, which I hope I got that right, Klaus. We'll just go with Klaus. He's the product manager for Metropolitan Touring and actually lives in Peru. So we're talking well tuned. So if you've ever dreamed of sending clients to the Galapagos, Ecuador, Peru, Colombia, or just want to feel more confident about talking about these destinations, you're in exactly the right place today. We're going to be about 45 minutes to an hour, including Q&A. Now, Klaus is going to talk to us, to walk us through three incredible bucket list regions, sharing the kind of practical and insider knowledge that he has gleaned over the years that will help make all the difference when planning a flawless trip for your clients. So we're taking the essentials, we're talking about the essentials like, excuse me, I have a frog in my throat, who these journeys are perfect for, and quite frankly, who they're not. The best times to travel, how far in advance you should book, and how long clients should really stay to get the full experience. So we're going to get all that knowledge today. I'm really excited. Now, for those new to metropolitan touring, they are true pioneers. They were the very first company to offer expedition cruises in the Galapagos back in 1969, and today they're one of South America's leading DMCs. So they own and operate some of Ecuador's most exceptional properties, including, and I'm going to get this wrong, Mash Pie Lodge, Finch Bay Lodge, Casa Gangotena, as well as the expedition yachts Isabella II and La Penta. Now, Klaus will be telling us all about this shortly. But before we get started, a little housekeeping. This webinar is being taped and you'll receive a copy of it tomorrow. So no need to take notes. Just pay attention and look at all the gorgeous pictures you're about to experience. If you have any questions, put them in the Q&A tab you'll see at the bottom of your screen. And Klaus's colleagues, Sarah and Millie, will reply in the app or at the end of the webinar and speak with Klaus directly. So, as you can see, we're in great hands today. So let's dive in. Klaus, it's over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Michelle, and glad to see that there's a lot of people joining us today. So, first of all, what I want to mention is my name doesn't sound terribly South American, but I was born, raised in Ecuador, and I've been living here for virtually all my life. So Millie and Sarah are joining us. They're in Lima, and I'm right now in Quito. So I'm really thrilled to talk about these three destinations. They're absolutely amazing. Some of them might be very familiar to some of you. Some of them might be new. We are, as Michelle mentioned, we're a very old company. That's not always a great credential. I'm going to take off my camera just so it's you're going to have the full screen with my slide presentation. So I'll be coming back with my camera when we get to the questions at the end of the presentation. So we are indeed one of the oldest DMCs when a DMC wasn't even a concept back in the 50s. We started with the inbound tourism in the region of South America, the Andean region of South America. And then once it was established that tourism was compatible with conservation in Galapagos, we put the very first ship in the Galapagos Islands, 1969. When there was a man in the moon, there was already a ship of ours in the Galapagos Islands. And then we've been there ever since. We're still in the Galapagos Islands. We have a hotel in Galapagos. We have a hotel in the city of Quito, in the very heart of the city, and one in the outskirts of the city of Quito, in a rainforest dash cloud forest. And we have ships in Galapagos, as Michelle mentioned. Then the year 2000 changed a few things, and that was when the Ecuador switched to the US dollar, and that certainly changed inbound tourism for Ecuador and Galapagos. So we looked into the neighboring countries. So what we did is we purchased an existing DMC. And we basically did the same delivery we've been doing successfully in Ecuador since the 50s, both in Ecuador, I mean, in Peru and in Colombia, where we have our regional offices. And we have Peruvians that show you Peru, we have Ecuadorians that show you Ecuador, and we have Colombians that show you Colombia, all with that same trademark of Ecuador. Well, these three countries are not only attached to each other, they're very similar in a few things, but completely different for the sake of experience. But one important thing is that they're not far from the equator. So you can see that the longest stay in Colombia or the longest stay in the southern part of Peru and the shortest stay, there's hardly any difference, which means that these are destinations that are available year round, no matter the month of the year you want to come or send people will be doing trips here. And in all of them, we are very much into the deep country, into getting to know the country much more than the main highways and the main tourist attractions. So one of the things we do in all of these countries is we get to know all of the products. We use these products. In fact, right now, some of our staff is in Peru, and they will be next week also in Colombia, so that they can see some of the new properties that are opening there. So we can always deliver something new. So if you see that something is in our portfolio, you would also know that these are products that we have used ourselves. In fact, we have a team that looks at them and may see that, look, if you just do a little change here, this would be immediately up to the standards for the British market or for the US market or for the Canadian or German markets and so on. So this is what we've been doing for the longest time. Now, we can always say we're the most handsome DMC in the region. We do all of these things. Despite the time we've been up there, we stay up in the edge. So you can see that the people who use us are people that can definitely confirm that we are trustworthy. You see a lot of brands here, maybe some of them you have already sent travelers to our end of the woods. Maybe you've already used our properties and you didn't even know that by using some of these brands that you see here, you might be in our hotels, in our ships, or with our guides on the land. So if you take any name here and you just Google that with Galapagos, you'd see that our ships will come up, our properties, our hotels, and so on. We also, with these affiliations, and this is to show that we really go in depth to make things special and unique for your clients. Now, back when I started, everybody could say, look, I'm really, really good. Now it's a lot easier to see how people rate you, how people grade you, how people see you when they use you. Some of them are users, some of them are travelers, some of them are organizations of the industry. Give you an example. Here you can see us as DMC, but also three hotels that we have. And for 2025, Finch Bay is in the Michelin list. Casa Gangotena has one Michelin key. Marsh Pilot has two Michelin keys. So you know Michelin is not a brand that simply sells its logo so we can advertise that we are up to their standards. They're really strict about this. So you know that we're doing the right job in these things. So awards and recognitions, this is year after year, we always stay on top. So being a large company or being an old company, in our case, I think they certainly are great credentials. Now let me start with Ecuador, and that's country I'm in right now. This is a country that oftentimes is not in the radar of travelers, not as much as Peru, definitely. But Ecuador is the gateway to the Galapagos Islands, and Ecuador has a few interesting things. It's one of the 17 megadiverse countries worldwide, and these are 17 countries that in the 80s and 90s reached that status as megadiverse. They had to harbor 60% of the world's species. And in those 17 countries, sorry, you have countries like Brazil, but Brazil is 30 times the size of Ecuador. You have countries, like Mexico, you have countries like the US. Ecuador is one of the smallest countries of the mega diverse countries, and it's next in size would be Colombia, and Colombia is 4 times the size of Ecuador. So it's really amazing how many species you can pack in such a small country like Ecuador. It has 5 UNESCO heritage sites. It's really, really rich in biodiversity, but also in cultural diversity. It's a very interesting country, and it's the gateway to the Galapagos Islands. Now, all the flights leaving out of Ecuador to Galapagos leave very early in the morning, so it makes sense to spend some time in Ecuador, and we can tailor make things for you. We have a hotel, our own hotel. It's a small boutique hotel in the city of Quito. We have another hotel, which is just a short drive, 2,000 meters down in elevation, still in the city of Quito, called Mashpi Lodge, where you have rainforest and cloud forest simultaneously. You've crossed the equator 3 times to get there. So it's great as an appetizer either before or after a Galapagos trip. And here's the Galapagos Islands. The Galapagos Islands is definitely a place that has no parallel worldwide. There's no such thing as there's an African version or an Australian version of Galapagos. The ingredients that made Galapagos what it is do not replicate in any other archipelago worldwide, being right on the equator west of a large landmass, so that the Coriolis bring species in on a one-way ticket but nothing out, because it's so different, the Galapagos, as South America, its nearest territory, land territory. The species have evolved in completely different ecosystems. There's no terrestrial depredation, so animals don't show fear, right? And it's absolutely massive. It's really, really big. 51,000 square miles if you're in the US, 143 or 133,000 square kilometers if you're metric. It's really big. It's massive. It's like the UK or the size of the state of Mississippi. And 97% of Galapagos is a national park with 0 inhabitants. In the 3% that's left, that's where 30,000 people live in Galapagos. And that's unfortunately where most of the people who go to Galapagos stay. They do not get into the national park, which is very, very sad. So these are our properties. I'll get back to Galapagos in a minute, but just to show you, here's the Mashpi Lodge. This is a lodge that has won a lot of awards simply for its concept. We started in the 70s with operations, our own operations, our riverboat operations in the Ecuadorian Amazon with our floating hotel. We called it Flotel. And we knew that how this is a great match. This is a perfect match with Galapagos. This is like somebody once realized that a hamburger and French fries is a perfect match. And there's no need to experiment with soup or salad, see if that works. Rainforests, these dense forests where you can spend a long time in a little area where you can listen to howler monkeys, but you can't see them. Then finally you spot them, right? It's completely different as the arid landscapes in Galapagos, where you have to be careful not to step on a sea lion because you thought it was a log and the sea lion is completely ignoring you right there. So Mashpi, we learned that rainforest is a perfect match. Mashpi is an incredible property, very small, 24 rooms, in the borderline between rainforest, so it's in the upper end of the rainforest or the lowest end of the cloud forest. So you get to see both of them. Give you an idea, 418 species of birds have been spotted on this private reserve. 24 rooms, no walk-in. So it's quite a privilege to be in this incredible place. And we have a research team since the beginning. So we've been able to produce by now 23 species, new species for the world, including some amphibians. We have some reptiles. We have some trees like the magnolia there and so on. Then you have in the upper right corner, that's Finch Bay Galapagos Hotel. That's a hotel that goes back to the 70s when it was built. And then it's been there. And then back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, you didn't have as many people going to Galapagos and taking the alternative, which would be day tours into the national park. And then we purchased this hotel right after we switched to the US dollar in the 2000s. And we've been running it ever since. And it's been winning a number of awards for its delivery, for its concept, for its involvement with conservation and so on. And then on the lower right, it's Casa Gangotena. That was a family estate that's in the heart of the city of Quito. Quito is the first city, together with Cracovia, with Krakow in Poland, declared by UNESCO cultural heritage sites in the world. So this is the oldest, 1978. Before Paris, before Prague, before London, Quito was the first cultural heritage site. It's an amazingly well-kept old town, and that's in the very heart, right there where the city was founded. That's where the hotel is. And then these are our ships. Isabela and La Pinta are fairly similar, except for a few differences. Isabela has 21 rooms for 40 passengers. La Pinta has 24 rooms for 48 passengers. And then you have Sea Lion there. Sea Lion used to be a live on board ship. We took three live on board ships out of Galapagos. We don't do that anymore. We don't do small vessels anymore at Galapagos, single guided vessels up to 16 passengers. And three ships like that, we fused the three permits together into La Pinta, which is 48 passengers. I'll tell you more about these vessels in a minute. But here's the thing. You have a lot of things to do in Ecuador. So from Quito, there's Mashpi. You cross the equator, as I mentioned 3 times. Ecuador also has Amazon, like Colombia and Peru, Brazil and Bolivia. These are all Amazonian countries. And then you have the Andes, you have the coasts, and there's tons of things you can do right there. So Quito is packed with a lot of things that can be done. This is what I was mentioning. Within the city of Quito, you got Casa Gangotena in the old town and Mashpi in the lower green part of the city of Quito. You've never left the city of Quito, and 3 hours later, you're in Mashpi Lodge. This is like Rio. A lot of people don't know that inside the city of Rio in Brazil, you have an incredibly large rainforest. Well, inside of Quito, you still have rainforest. You've got cloud forest and elfin forest. So here's the hotel's location. This is absolutely superb. Here's Mashpi Lodge. We built it with a more novel material from Italy called emedue. And emedue has been very popular in the Alps and in Europe because in the summer when it gets very hot and humid, or in the winter when it gets very cold, this keeps everything outside, but it also keeps the sounds, the moisture, high or low temperatures, which is not an issue in Mashpi. The temperature is 73 degrees Fahrenheit or 23 degrees centigrade. So it's perfect. You don't need jackets or you don't need to peel off layers because it gets too hot. But it keeps the moisture outside. So if no moisture comes inside, you would know that you wouldn't be bothered by insects. The food in all of our products is extraordinary. I'm really proud, and because I love cooking, that the company has put such a lot of effort in food. We have a team of chefs from the Cordon Bleu School that works with the hotels and the ships to make new menus and to keep changing and to try to use locally as much as possible. So food is not a biological necessity that we have to take care of 3 times a day. Food is part of your experience, and we try to be as local as possible for the carbon offsetting. And the food, a lot of people come here and they would never expect that it's such a high standard. Then how do we show you that rainforest, cloud forest? We have invested in these sort of technology. We have the dragonfly, which is right on the center of your screen. These are gondolas that take you 2 kilometers one way and then 2 kilometers back. So, and you can combine trails with the dragonfly, and that is so you can see the forest at the different strata from practically ground level, then to the mid-story, to the canopy, above the canopy. So to be able to understand the diversity of this forest, this is a superb tool. You've got 4 seats for guests and one guide, and it quietly glides through this area. This is absolutely amazing. Then we have the sky bike. The sky bike, we got an idea from a magazine of technology, and then our engineers adjusted it for Mashpi, and the person that passed back is pedaling. The person in front is enjoying the view. It goes a few hundred meters from one crest to the other. Likewise, with the dragonfly, you can now see the forest at different strata. You could even paddle backwards a little bit or again forward to be able to see plants, animals from a completely different setting. And then here's our life center. We have a research area there. We're working with birds. We're working with orchids, with butterflies. So getting there is a nice way to see how tourism can support conservation and be truly sustainable on the long run. Because of its elevation, like I said, it's on the upper end of the rainforest, like as high as the rainforest gets, and at the lower end of the cloud forest, we see rainforest and cloud forest mammals, amphibians, birds, and so on. Ecuador is extraordinary because it's so small. It's amazing. It's the fourth richest bird country in terms of birds. And Mashpi has 418 species of birds. That's more than one fourth of the birds of Ecuador. So one of every four birds seen in Ecuador has been spotted on our private reserve. So you don't need to be a birder. Your clients don't have to be birds. We'll make them birders for the day. But these birds are truly amazing, like really, really colorful, really like toucans and parrots. And here you see the cock of the rock and so on. So that's a great match. We suggest at least 3 nights on Mashpi. We can arrange all these things. The flights within Ecuador, or the flights within Colombia, or within Peru, or if you want to combine countries, we are very good at doing this. Some of you will probably agree. Sometimes the domestic flights within South America can be a bit of a challenge to get a response, the change of timings, all of these things, how that is a critical part of planning vacation. Leave it up to us. It's not going to be more expensive, but for us, it's a breeze to arrange the local flights. There's a local airline that even produced a flight number for each of the departures of our ships in Galapagos. That's how good we are at doing this with the local connectivity. So let's go to the Galapagos. As I mentioned, the flights leave out of Quito. They stop briefly in Guayaquil. You don't get off the plane, so they will refuel, and then some guests will get off, some will come in, and then there is a little less than 2 hours flight into the Galapagos Islands. That's a different time zone, so that's comparable to maybe a New York Chicago flight. If we have some in Europe, this would be like a Rome Madrid flight, something along that area. Um, but you're going briefly over international waters. So there's a couple of things that the flight or the day of the flight could be a hassle. We make that very, very easy for your clients. The paperwork that needs to be in, the permits that need to be done, the information that they need that day, stage wise, until they get to the Galapagos Islands, it can be a little bit of a headache, and we make it as easy as possible. How many flights, being on the wrong flight, being on the wrong airport, all of that could mean that you miss the arriving on the plane, or that your luggage doesn't get there because there's a lot of pressure on cargo for Galapagos. So the flights that we book to Galapagos, we also guarantee that the clients will be there at the place and site they need to be. Their luggage will be there. That's part of the marriage certificate we have with the local airline, and that if the flight is delayed, the departure of our ships will be also matched to that flight. So we'll make that very easy for you. And then here's the Galapagos. As I mentioned, 51,000 square miles. That's really, really big. That's an enormous area. A lot of people are surprised when they get there to see the massive areas in Galapagos. And it's like Hawaii, except a few things are the opposites. There's a places in Hawaii that are protected. It's a national park or natural monument or national monument. Sorry, the five rings you see here, these are the ports of call in Galapagos. When you're going on a ship, normally you go on the ports of call, then you have day at sea. With our ships, you don't have day at sea, and the ports of call you see there, we may use two of them, in one or two in one itinerary. One of them because the research station there, and the other one because the airport is there. So when you get to Galapagos, you'll be going to the other dots you see there. There's 183 visiting sites. Half of them are marine, half of them are terrestrial, and we design the itineraries based on the contents. Now, here's what you should know. And I know there's a lot written about this. There's a lot of mixed things about Galapagos being, CNN just came up with something this week about over tourism in Galapagos. Now, it's not because I am in a tourist industry. I'm also a member of the Charles Darwin Foundation. And one of the things I fear is that, you know, there is no mass tourism in Galapagos. That's very important. The numbers have been rising. Yes, that the green line you see there, that's the total number of people who have been traveling to Galapagos. The bottom line you see is how many people go by boat, and by people that go by boat, that is a very small number. Any stadium has probably more seats than we would have in a whole year in a national park the size of the state of Mississippi. So imagine 51,000 square miles and you have 90,000 people in a year. So that's not mass tourism. What you should know is that you never have 2,000 people at any given moment in the national park. That's if you take all of the ships that go to Galapagos that are allowed to be in the Galapagos, the outside ships cannot come in. If you take all of the visitors on the ships, at any given moment, you never have 2,000 people in an area the size of the state of Mississippi. That's 51,000 square miles. So it's 61 ships. We've been there since 1969, so we have great experience on ships in Galapagos. We still have the ships in Galapagos. And what you should know is that there's some small as 10 passengers. And there's a couple that go up to 100. 100 is the largest ship in the Galapagos Islands. There's very few of them, but 100 is in the U.S. according to CLIA, not even considered a small ship. They call small ships anything 250 upwards. That's a small ship. So 100 doesn't even qualify as a small ship. That's very, very small. On a 100 passenger ship, you would know everyone on the second day. When you're in the dining area, you'd be surprised. Are these 100 people sitting here? Right. So it's the combined capacity of the 69 ships is 1,670. And that's the only way you get to see the national park. Now, we used to have small vessels. We decided to move to something larger. We don't do single guided vessels anymore. We want to have at least three guides. I'll talk about that in a second. But our itineraries, all of the 69 ships have to do an itinerary where nothing is repeated within 2 weeks' time. So in 2 weeks, you have a full loop of Galapagos. Now, 2 weeks is a long time and is also expensive for anybody to travel to Galapagos. So most of the ships break it down into 3, 4, and 7 nights. And we decided to go a little bit different. So what we have is we have 4 nights, we have 6 nights, and we have 8 nights. 8 nights is the best way to see Galapagos. 8 nights, 7 days. That's the best way to see Galapagos. Really, it's a little bit more than a week. And when you look at the price, we make it really attractive because you'll get to see it's basically a combination of two of four. So it's a full movie and a second full movie. This is like a double espresso, so a tour operator in the US calls this, right? When most people have 7 nights, and they call it a watered down Americano because you don't see as many big 15s as you can see in our itineraries. In a 4 night itinerary, I can give you 12 big 15s. That's 80% of the 15 hottest Galapagos animals. And by having an 8 nights, you get 14. That's almost the full list of the most important Galapagos animals. And the other option is a 6 night, which is almost a week. And a 6 night, you also have about 14 big 15s. And the exciting thing is that you can then stay perhaps in a hotel in Galapagos and then relax a little bit more, stay there and savor and digest what you experience on the ship, or maybe go scuba diving in that those extra days you're going to stay in Galapagos in a hotel. So those are the best combinations. Here's why we don't want to do a single guide anymore. Back when I was a guide or when we had the small vessels, in the morning I'm going on shore with a group, but there's some that for the trail is too difficult. The volcanic islands in Galapagos may be somehow challenging. And if you don't have a second guide, well, they have to stay on board. So I go with whoever is a good shape for walking, come back on board. Then we do a boat ride along the coast. Everybody can be doing this. This is very easy. But then we get back to the ship and then we go in snorkeling. Now, maybe some cannot go snorkeling, but you can't do anything else because you have to be with a guide. So if somebody wants to go kayaking, they'll have to wait for everything to be over and then we can go kayaking because you cannot do anything without a guide. You cannot walk on the islands. You cannot stay on the beach while everybody's walking. You cannot be kayaking while some are snorkeling unless you have a guide with you. So it makes perfect sense to have at least three guides so we can break down into the options simultaneously. So we can have a hike on shore with those who are in good shape to walk. But for those who find it a little bit too difficult, we have a boat ride with a guide at the same time. They don't have to wait on board. And then we have those who want to go snorkeling. There's very few ships in Galapagos that have a glass bottom boat. We have our ships have a glass bottom boat, so you can have that option, right? In fact, some of the snorkelers enjoy the glass bottom boat. These are heavy crafts, otherwise it wouldn't work. You wouldn't see nothing but bubbles if it's just a zodiac with a glass bottom. It would be bobbing on the surface. You'd get seasick, and you wouldn't be able to see anything because of the reflection of the sky and so on. So you get on the glass bottom boat, and the guide is telling you which are the names of these fishes you've been looking when you were snorkeling. And then for those who want to make it more active, we have paddle boards and kayaks. So we have having three guides at least, that makes this very easy because we can have these simultaneous activities, and you don't have to be on board waiting for an activity to be done. So you could go out and do it, which is what happens on a smaller vessel with just one guide. In fact, the crew that we have on our vessels is the crew that we need to have on our vessels, and we have a captain. Most of the small ships, they will be mastered by a skipper. Because of the cost, you couldn't have a first mate, a second mate, and a captain on a small vessel with only 16 passengers. So we have that on our ship. So there's always an officer on duty while the others are resting. This is like passenger airplanes. Captain might be resting, so the co-pilot is flying, is in charge of the plane. The same thing on our vessels. We also have a medical officer, and it may be a surprise to know that from the 69 ships in Galapagos, 60 ships don't have a medical officer on board. If somebody gets sick, if somebody has an allergy, if somebody has a tummy ache and doesn't know if it's something I ate, maybe I swallowed some seawater, or maybe this is an appendicitis. Having a medical doctor and a fully equipped infirmary is very important in our operations. But that doesn't mean you're going to lose on these charming things about travel. You get amazing food. We have 4 or 5 chefs on our vessels on Isabela and La Pinta. We have one chef just to our crew, so our chefs can really dedicate their best to the food. The food is amazing on board of the vessels, but you don't go to Galapagos because we make amazing eggs Benedict. You go because of the wildlife, because the expeditions, because of those aquatic safaris that we provide there. But then the food is really amazing, and this is the perfect match for the experience you had on shore. Here's La Pinta. I'll just tell you briefly, all of our cabins are in one deck above sea level. At sea level, we have our crew. So when you see those round portholes, that's our crew. The larger portholes in the middle of the ship, that's our dining area and our galley. That's the deck that moves the least. One deck above, why is it so important for us? Because this deck here is isolates our clients with at least one buffer deck from the generators, the engines, and the props in the aft, because these three things produce sound and vibrations that could affect your rest, your sleep. We want our clients to sleep well. And part of our success is because our clients are fully rested in the morning when they go on shore with our guides, and then they can hear all the explanations of the wildlife and so on. You can see large windows, very comfortable cabins. I'll show you in a minute. The other thing that we've invested a lot is in providing access at sea level. You'll see our vessels have this access at sea level on midship, port and starboard, but we also have an aft platform at sea level. That is challenging things to do if you want to comply with SOLA 74, the Safety of Life at Sea chapter of the International Maritime Organization. So it has everything that a ship has to have to be safe and to be approved to sail these waters. But we step directly onto the zodiacs when we disembark. There's no accommodation ladder. Normally, ships have an accommodation ladder. We don't have that because that takes more time to disembark or embark when you're returning to the vessel. You can see the same thing here on Isabela dos. We disembark on the midship at sea level. One deck above is where all the cabins are, but we have a lot of space on the exterior on top of the vessel. In fact, we can stow the glass bottom boats, 8 doubles and 1 single kayak, so the full capacity approved by the national park, and we embark on the aft platform, so very similar in that sense. We take smaller groups in the Galapagos. 16 is the maximum you can take per guide. Our average is between 10 and 12 guests per guide, so smaller groups. We never mix languages. That's another advantage we have for having at least 3 guides. If there's a group that speaks French, we'll have a guide for the French speakers so that in English, you don't have to repeat everything. That's on the lectures on board, the safety drill. We do not mix languages, so you don't have to hear everything twice or 3 times. And then on some, as I mentioned, some of the trails are more demanding, so we'll do the zodiac explorations. That's or panga rides, as they're called. These are zodiacs, and there's a guide there with the glides. And from the comfort of your zodiac, you can explore the coast and see the cliff sides, the animals that are perched and nesting in this area. Galapagos is mostly a marine environment, and when we have these unexpected things like dolphins or whales showing up, then we put this as top priority. We even stop the ship if this is happening on mid-ocean. We'll bring down the zodiacs, and this is what we know. It's not scheduled, but it's there and it's priority. Galapagos is in fact has 23 species of whales year round because we're on the equator. It doesn't matter which month of the year you want to come. Every month you can see tons and tons of fish. This Galapagos is mostly cooler water, although we're right on the equator. You can see this person's wearing wetsuits. We provide all the equipment, the masks, the fins, the everything. So that's what the ships. The ships, as I mentioned, 4 nights, 6 nights, and 8 nights. 8 nights the best, followed by 6, and 4 is it's really the shortest version, but at least you know you have an espresso and not watered down Americano. The Hotel Finch Bay is in Santa Cruz. This is a great extension of your stay on the ships. It has a little spa next to the hotel. This is the only hotel in Santa Cruz that has a beach within a few steps from your bungalow. You have the beach and a fantastic spa. And I would say these are the best rooms in Galapagos. There's a nice range from the starting at price until the best suites. But these, I would be willing to defend my case if somebody wants to challenge that these are the best rooms for hotels in the Galapagos Islands. And it has its own yacht. This is the Sea Lion, and there's only 12 yachts like this that have permit for day tour. Day tour out of the Santa Cruz Islands will take you to some sites like Santa Fe, like North Seymour, like Bartolome. You can tick off up to 12 big 15s, but you would have to stay 1 week because you get to go one site per day as opposed to on the live on board ships where you have one in the morning and one in the afternoon. This one is one at midday, but still it's an amazing option to see maybe families with kids, people who don't want to be with the rigorous schedules of the ships, something more flexible. It could be a great option, but very few people can stay in a hotel and see the national park. Remember, national park is 97% of the Galapagos. So here's a hotel. This is our beach. And the ship, this was a 16 passenger live on board, and we turned it into it's a 20 passenger day tour. So a day you can be inside, you can be outside. So we're sailing to the nearby islands. Then the tables that are collapsed here will be put out. We have a chef on board. This is one of the few day tour boats that has a chef on board. Again, food is one of our obsessions. And these are the places that we go. So we go to Bartolome, we go to North Seymour. North Seymour was voted one of the top 4 visiting sites in Galapagos, right? We have Santa Fe. We are the only place you see the Santa Fe iguanas. Here is South Plaza, and Bartolome, one of the places you get to swim with penguins and so on. So if you do 1 week, you can do all of these sites plus the sites on the island of Santa Cruz and tick off as much as 12 big 15s. Here's what is on the island of Santa Cruz. Anything from biking. See that sign here in the middle? That's a tortoise crossing sign, and it's really neat. Kayaking, paddleboarding, snorkeling. We arrange scuba diving options, stunning beaches in the area, and that's what we have with Galapagos. Because of time, I'm going to go really quick now with the rest of my presentation. As I mentioned, a long time ago when Ecuador switched to the US dollar and somehow the dynamics of traveling to Galapagos and Ecuador changed with the US dollar as our currency. That makes it a lot of things very easy. For one thing, we went from 3-digit to a single-digit inflation, so that brought a lot of stability to Ecuador. It also made booking a lot easier because you don't have these changes in currency that may have to demand adjustments and so on. So you can have a single-stop shop here if you want to combine countries and so on. But then we looked into Peru. and Peru as a DMC and Colombia as a DMC. And a lot of people agree that there is this great combination for Galapagos if you do Machu Picchu. I started as a guide in the Amazon a long time ago in Ecuador, and I believe Peru has the best Amazon in from the Amazonian countries. It's by far the best. So it's a great combination to have Machu Picchu with the Amazon, with Lima, all the combinations you can do there. Because of time, there's no way I can put in all these countries, but Peru is one of the most magical countries. And if you've been keeping up with the latest discovery of the new pyramids in the coast of Peru, with the new ruins, you can have a couple of trips into Peru without combining anything and return to your country and go back and say, I don't know which trip was better. If I did the southern part of Peru, if I did the northern part of Peru, it's absolutely amazing. It's like Ecuador and Colombia, these three, together with Brazil, are the four richest countries with birds. When you look at the cultural wealth of Peru and its amazing food, you'd see that this is a country that is worth several trips without repeating things and still produce happy customers. So in Peru, we've been for a really long time. We know, and like in the other countries, we go deep into the place to see. There's some things that have become very popular, but now it's maybe there's long queues to get there. It's a little bit more tedious. It affects your experience. So to find options to those, and as in the other countries, we use the properties if they're not ours to make sure that they're up to the standards before we put them on our delivery. It's all tailor made, is one to one. So we work on your client's interest and we design something and then make adjustments so it's the perfect delivery for your clients. I just want to show briefly. This is Marco Larrea. He's our manager. The reason I put this picture here is because this was yesterday. I just talked to him and said, "Look, I'm going to have a presentation today about Ecuador, Peru, and Colombia. So tell me where you are." And he said, "Look, this is where I am right now." This is what I mentioned. We go and use these properties, and it's not just the sites, but also the restaurants, the transportation, everything that we can put in our portfolio. We do it only if we use it before. Peru, as I mentioned, is an incredibly rich country with so many options. Besides those that are best known, we can go a lot deeper and show you an amazing experience there. We put these trip planners, they may be looking a bit confusing, but it's to show that when we have a client of yours and we work with you, we can see what's the best way to combine so we can maximize the time in the in these countries. Um, we believe that nothing less than 10 days is a time that we can give you a complete or good experience of a country. If your clients have less than that, then what we do is we work on the highlights and we make it happen. But we are very proud that our clients love what we put together for them. So that's a trip planner. And in Colombia is something similar. Now, back when we started the regional spread from our company, we with Peru, everybody was in agreement, but a lot of people thought Colombia, why would anybody want to go in Colombia in the right state of mind? And yes, 35 years ago, Colombia was a country that didn't have much inbound tourism. It has its own issues. Plan Colombia started 1999. So there's been a lot of changes. A lot of investment has been put into Plan Colombia from 1999 onwards. And in less than a decade later, Colombia was already thriving, and it's one of the fastest growing destinations worldwide. Colombia has had a growth of 18%. It's one of the top 10 destinations with fastest growth worldwide. And Colombia doesn't have a big magnet like Machu Picchu could be for Peru or Galapagos for Ecuador, and yet it's growing incredibly fast. So, and that's because people who go there are always amazed by the country. Here, all of our rules go too. That what we provide is something that is off the beaten path. It's a little bit more of the profound. We've been looking at Colombia, and in fact, we were going to open right before the pandemic our lodge similar to Mashpi on the Meta region. We've also been working on the Magdalena River. We're going to put our riverboat there. We've been there 10 years almost surveying the area for the right type of delivery. So it's a country we know very, very much. And that it's one of my favorite countries too, because my wife's from Colombia. I met her 25 years ago, and I've been traveling every year to visit her family and now my family. And then when this became one of the highlights, and now I'm also product manager for Colombia, I'm just thrilled because it has so much to offer, and it's a hidden gem within South America. So Colombia is an incredible country. It has the Caribbean in the north. It has a mountain range that's not the Andes, whereas the highest mountain near Santa Marta. It's a great way, and because it has such an amazing connectivity, we can plan a trip for your clients entering one city and departing from the other one with a completely different loop if they're more interested in food, and they're more interested in cultural aspects, in adventure, in if they have kids and they want to do something that are more kids friendly. So we can tailor make that trip for your clients, and we've been producing nothing but happy customers. He is a planner for Colombia, and again, this it goes a lot deeper than what you see right here. So this is what we do. We look for the top properties in Colombia, in Peru, and in Ecuador. In the case of Ecuador, we have some of our own properties, and it's us. It's our staff. We are there. We go and use these properties, and then when you see it, it's our brand. We if you want to know what the weather is like, I open the window and look outside and tell you what the weather's like here. And we are the locals, we are the local experts. If a new property comes up, we're the first ones they call and say, look, come, please come visit our property and put it in your portfolio. We have this a portal. And this portal, I believe, is extraordinarily useful. We've had a lot of people who comment that it's an incredible portal, like a lot of other companies should probably emulate. So let me show you this briefly, this video about our portal.
Ecuador, Peru, and Colombia. Discover the smartest way to explore and sell the Galapagos Islands, Ecuador, Peru, and Colombia. Welcome to Metropolitan Touring's Travel Agent Portal. Get essential destination insights, from climate to must-know facts. Discover our award-winning hotels and one-of-a-kind experiences. Connect anytime with our destination experts. Chat, call, or book a one-on-one. Boost your business with webinars, top itineraries, and multimedia tools. Check Galapagos cruise availability live right from your portal. All you need to sell smarter in one place. Metropolitan Touring's Travel Agent Portal.
All right. This is what I had for you. I had to sprint through 3 countries, 3 amazing destinations, also very compatible among themselves. We are here. We can put the trip together for you. I'm gonna now open for Millie and Sarah. I don't know if there's any questions. They may have already answered some of them. Let me put my camera back on.
I just need to make a comment, Klaus. All I gotta say is I'm sure glad we have this videotaped because I don't know how anybody can keep all this information in one head. Well done, you. Fascinating. And we've got about 10 minutes if you want to finish off. Millie and Sarah, have you got anything in the Q&A?
Hello, yes, we have already 2 questions, so we are responding by the chat. Okay.
Well, let's read it out loud so we can all reap the benefit of the question and the answers.
Okay, so the first one is from Judy. She says, where in Peru are the pyramids recently discovered, and can you include in a tour excursion with archaeologists? Yes, we for sure we can offer excursions with archaeologists. The pyramids recently discovered are in Lima, and also we have new ones in Chachapoyas in the rainforest from Peru. So we can do both, of course, and you can as well request the archaeologist. And also we have very specialized tour guides, so we can do that too.
Excellent.
We also have a question about Ecuador. If a number of passengers on both boat, if you can help us, Klaus, with this. It was
Certainly.
48 in one, but
Certainly. So the ship that is depicted here is Isabela II, and she takes 40 passengers. And she has 21 cabins. And reason I'm saying that with a little bit of my head tilt is because in Galapagos, if a ship has a permit for 16 passengers, there has never ever been a permit to take passengers 17, no matter who that is. So it's generally 8 double rooms. The fact that Isabela has 21 cabins means that we have one extra cabin that we can always use for single occupants. So if you have a party of 3 or party of 5 or party of 7, party of 1, then that cabin comes very, very, very handy for those cases. So it's also good to have a booking or reserve that cabin as early as you know your client's interest and know that it's good to book in advance. That's always a good idea. The other ship has 24 cabins, yes, for 48 passengers. That's La Pinta. But it's in its general layout and size very, very similar. Large enough to carry a glass bottom boat, all of the kayaks permitted by the national park, have a first mate, a second mate, and a captain, which means always an officer on duty. The staff that you need, a medical officer, a cruise director, expedition leader. The most important person on our ship is the expedition leader, right? We do expeditions in Galapagos. We don't do, recreational cruising. So those are the sizes. And then Sea Lion takes 20 guests, but that's day tour, and we have 2 guides at least on board. If we need more, we put more guides on board.
okay, then we have another question about our agent portal. And we will send you all the information to your emails about this how to get this, how to register to our agent portal. So don't worry, you will have an access to this portal.
Also, Sarah, I'll just interject here for anybody who's already a member of BranchUp, which of course most of you are. If you go into your BranchUp account and on the left-hand side, the navigation bar, it says supplier links. And if you click on that, then you just go to Metropolitan Touring and you'll see there's 2 links there. One is for the supplier profile. So a great overview of what Metropolitan Touring offers and for the advisors as well. And then the other link is to the portal. So if you're not signed up, just click there, boom, you're in.
Thank you.
We've also got a question here from Tina. The question is, how much is a single supplement? Now, I imagine that would vary.
That is correct. That's correct. But then the neat thing is that for most of the Galapagos ships, because they have as many beds as their permit, that means that on the double cabins, anybody willing to travel solo will have to pay the empty bed, which is anywhere between 100% to 80%. That's normally the number you have there. So in our case, you'll see that, as you mentioned, it varies depending on the itinerary, but it's considerably less than that. We'll send you that information as well.
Great. And I just want to tell you that Judy also says, thank you for the excellent presentation. It was all new to her.
We have another question about, do you have groups on Galapagos and what is the minimum size?
Do we have groups in Galapagos? Well, what we do is when you come on board, unless you have a group, if you want to have a group, we work with you and see if that group, we can handle it the entire time as a group. Remember, up to 16, we can have one guide with 16. That's not a problem. That's allowed by the national park. If it's larger, we need to work with you specifically. But then once everybody comes on board, what the expedition leaders do is they break down first by language. Then we break down by interest, by affinities, by abilities, by limitations. So we could have then break it down into smaller groups. But then at one point you might be with somebody from Australia on the class parambot, but one language only. We don't mix the languages. So with the groups, we've been doing this so long that we can be very efficient and taking the most out of your experience and the time you're going to be there. But if you have a group, contact us and we'll work with you to see how we can get the best out of that experience in Galapagos. Same thing with Peru and same thing with Colombia, of course. Even the charter basis is something very interesting. You need to have the whole ship.
Okay.
Something that I really want to share before we end the presentation is that we as a DMC, we offer breakdown invoice, so you can see what's the prices of each services that your clients are paying for. We respect commission. We do gross and net rates, and you will have all the information in the travel agent portal. But I want to just highlight this because we know that it's very important for travel agents to know more about it, and how we have a whole department in charge of paying the commission. So this is very important for us to mention. Thank you.
And I would like to add something else, that is that we have an early bird of 5% off, that it can go to your commission, or it can be included as a discount for your clients. And this is until this November 30. It can be extended, but please let us know if you need something from us, from our Metropolitan Touring.
And maybe the last thing is just to give you this wrap up. You got Galapagos, and if you want to combine Galapagos with Ecuador, combine it with Colombia or with Peru, this is something that is guaranteed success. Last week we had a quality surveillance. La Pinta had 94 points. Isabela had 95 points. So it's producing very happy customers, right? And then the flights, the stay on the ship, the combination of things, and producing happy customers. And we keep you informed if something is going on, if something extraordinarily good happened or something bad happened, the person dropped the camera and broke it or something. So you would know, be informed the entire time. But it's long periods, guaranteed happy people, and at high cost with the commissions. This is something that your clients will come back and say, you gave me a life changer. And that's the word that we hear the most in our surveillances, life changer.
Well, on that note, Klaus, Tina is asking, if you had a group of 16 that would sell out this ship, would there be a different rate? And she says, I'm feeling ambitious. So well done, you.
Well, 16 would be one group for one guide, so we can keep one guide for the 16 passengers. But the 40 passenger ship, it's not completely filled, unless you want to charter the ship with 16. That would be a little bit expensive. But what we can do is, if the 16 come with a person like a tour director that wants to also have some sort of limelight to be able to give some of the presentations, give a talk, have something to handle it as a group with some of the advantages you would have if you had a 16 passenger boat charter without chartering. But now you have a medical doctor, you have a captain, a first mate, an officer on duty. It's a ship large enough to negotiate swells. It has an amazing food, right? So all of the advantages, but we respect that group thing. So yes, when you go with a group, we'll give you also a lot of advantages, definitely.
Excellent. Well, it is time. It's 1:57, Klaus. Talk about by the neck of your hairline. So just before saying goodbye and thank you, I want to also mention that Abu Bakar has said, wonderful webinar. I felt like I traveled there, which was, I agree. Great team, very impressed. And then also he's been invited to visit this week BioExpo 2025 next week in Colombia, and he's looking forward to the event and to meeting your team. So well done, you guys. Thank you very much for a very, very informative presentation. Really appreciate your time, both the team from Metropolitan, and of course, all of the agents and advisors who are online. Appreciate your time and your attention, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much. See you
So
next time.
much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.